There's something just plain irritating about the way the Browns have started their season. Sitting at 1 win and 4 losses, you'd think they'd be a complete non-factor, an easy checkmark on the calendar. But here we are, heading into this weekend, and the Steelers are staring down a matchup that, quite frankly, couldn't be more inconvenient. Everything about the Browns, specifically that defense, screams trouble, and not the kind that goes away quietly after kickoff. This is the kind of game where the Steelers aren't just playing another team. They're confronting themselves, face to face with their biggest weaknesses, and they better be ready. Now let's break it down, because this is no ordinary divisional clash. Sunday at Acrisure Stadium, as soon as that ball is in the air, it becomes crystal clear what the mission is. And it's not complicated. The Steelers have to overcome the one thing that's held them back most consistently this season: running the ball. Simple to say, brutal to execute, especially when the team lining up across from you has the #1 run defense in the entire National Football League. That's right. Cleveland, with Jim Schwartz calling the shots on defense, is giving up just 75.6 rushing yards per game, #1 in the league. And before anyone thinks, well, okay, maybe we'll just throw it on them instead, let's pump the brakes on that idea too, because their pass defense is 4th in the league, a stingy unit that allows only 172.2 yards through the air per game. So if you're going to beat them, you better come ready to fight for every single blade of grass. This isn't going to be finesse. This is going to be trench warfare, old school football, where you win by blowing guys off the line, digging holes where there were none, and leaning hard into every last bit of muscle and grit. It's not just about dialing up Jaylen Warren and watching magic happen. As good as he's been, that's not enough against this defense. The offensive line is going to have to bring it. And this is where things start to get real. We saw a glimpse of what this offense could be in Dublin when the Steelers finally started creating space and playing with a bit of rhythm against Minnesota. But that can't be a one-off. That has to be the blueprint going forward. The personnel decisions made in that game need to stick, including having Spencer Anderson in as an extra lineman and Darnell Washington out there on nearly every snap. This is not the time to get cute or creative. This is the time to lean into what worked. And no, it's not just about Myles Garrett, although you'd think it was based on how much his name gets brought up. I've seen the headlines. I've heard all the talk. How are the Steelers going to stop Garrett? What's the plan to contain him? But here's the thing. Cleveland's front is more than just one man. Garrett is a freak, sure. 4 sacks, 8 tackles for loss, over 20 total tackles in just 5 games. But he's not out there alone. Isaiah McGuire, on the other side, is a problem too. 1 sack for tackles for loss, a forced fumble. He's not just filling space, he's making plays. And if you're Broderick Jones or anyone on that O-line, your assignment isn't just about handling one guy. It's about knowing that these Browns rotate, they stunt, they move guys around constantly. Garrett's lining up all over the place. He's not predictable. He floats, finds weak spots, and pounces. So yes, Darnell Washington might have to help. The line might need to double. But you can't let that become your sole focus, because the rest of that defensive front will eat you alive if you get too locked in on Garrett alone. Now, don't get me wrong, I would love nothing more than to sit here and rip the Browns apart. I'll live for that kind of talk. But this defense, you can't clown that. Not without looking foolish. They're not just good, they're dominant, especially up front. So if Pittsburgh is going to put points on the board, it won't be because Cleveland let them. It'll be because they earned every yard the hard way. Warren, yes, but also Kenny Gainwell, Caleb Johnson, maybe even John Smith if he gets involved the way we hope he does. It's going to take all of them. And if they manage to break through, that's not just a win on the scoreboard. That's a statement. And here's where it gets even more interesting. Because while everyone wants to point at Cleveland's offensive struggles as the great equalizer, and hey, I get it, they've been rough. You might want to hold off on dismissing them entirely. They've got a rookie quarterback in Dylan Gabriel who, while young and inexperienced, has shown enough poise and precision to not be ignored. The guy's only played in 3 games so far, but he's already done enough to take the starting job and shove Joe Flacco out the door. That's not nothing. Gabriel's completed 22 of 37 passes for 209 yards. That's a near 60% completion rate. 3 touchdowns, no picks, and more than anything, He's shown something you can't really teach: composure. You don't watch him and think, oh, this guy's going to fold under pressure. You see a lefty who's got some juice, a little swagger, and most importantly, control. The word coming out of Cleveland is that he doesn't look rattled. He looks like he belongs. And when you're a defense trying to rattle a rookie, that's exactly the opposite of what you want to hear. Now, add Quinton Judkins into that mix, their second-round pick this past summer out of Ohio State, and things start to look a little more dangerous. Judkins is already stacking up solid numbers. 72 carries, 347 yards, a 4.8-yard average, 2 touchdowns, and some contributions in the passing game, too. 9 catches for 62 yards. And he's trending up. 110 rushing yards on 23 carries in their last game against the Vikings in London. This guy's gaining confidence every week, and you can feel it when he runs. He's not out there trying to figure it out. He's hitting holes, dragging defenders, and making noise. Now think about where the Steelers have struggled the most on defense. Yeah, that's right. Stopping the run. So here we go again. Pittsburgh's biggest flaw, being directly targeted by an opponent's rising strength. This isn't about cliches like, oh, it's a divisional game, so you throw the records out. No, this is about two teams whose strengths directly attack the other's weaknesses. This is about the Steelers looking in the mirror and asking themselves if they've actually improved or if Dublin was just a fluke. Because I'll be honest, I gave them credit for what they did against the Vikings. That was real progress. But this would be something else entirely. This would be growth against a legitimate challenge. This would be proof that the adjustments they made weren't temporary. And if they pull it off, it's a massive feather in the cap for Mike Tomlin's crew. But it's going to be a war. And every player on that roster knows it. Because Cleveland might be 1-4, but they're not playing like it on defense. And they know, just as well as Pittsburgh does, that another loss could bury their season. They're desperate. They're dangerous. And they're coming in swinging. That's why this game has such a different feel. It's not just about who wins and who loses. It's about whether the Steelers can keep proving they're turning a corner, or if the ghosts of the early season are still lurking just beneath the surface. You remember what those first few games looked like. Sloppy execution, confused assignments, a line that couldn't protect or open up anything, and a team that felt, for lack of a better word, disconnected. There were individual efforts, sure. You saw flashes, but nothing that felt collective. It was like everyone was waiting for someone else to figure it out. That started to change, finally, in that game overseas. And yes, it's only one win, but it was how they won that mattered. It wasn't luck. It wasn't a fluke bounce. It was physical dominance, clean execution, and a clear sense of purpose. They played like a team. That kind of thing is contagious in a locker room. Guys who were on the verge of losing their confidence, or worse, losing their spots, started to play like they belonged. You saw Keanu Benton start to flash again. You saw Patrick Queen finally looking like the field general he was supposed to be, finally getting the response he needed from the guys around him. TJ Watt, Nick Herbig, even the guys in the secondary, they played fast, physical, and for once they weren't chasing the game. They were dictating it. That's why this next step matters so much. If you can back it up, if you can bring that same energy, that same cohesion against a team that's built to exploit your soft spots, then you're not just bouncing back. You're building something. But it's got to happen on both sides of the ball. Offense can't hide behind the excuse that the Browns' defense is too good. And the defense can't pretend Cleveland's offense is toothless just because it doesn't have a big-name quarterback. Look, Dylan Gabriel isn't out here slinging for 400 yards. But he doesn't need to be. He just needs to stay composed, hit the throws that are there, and let the run game do the heavy lifting. And with Judkins getting stronger every week, that formula is working well enough to make Cleveland dangerous, especially if Pittsburgh isn't gap disciplined, especially if tackling starts to slip. One missed assignment, one mistimed blitz, and Judkins is downfield before you can even say his name. So this defense needs to be sharp. No freelancing. No unnecessary risks. Just disciplined physical football. And yeah, that's easy to say, harder to execute, especially over 4 quarters against a team that's going to keep coming right at you. Because that's the thing about these AFC North matchups. They're rarely pretty. They're not about style. They're about attrition. They wear you down. They test your toughness. And this Sunday, that test is going to be more intense than anything the Steelers have seen so far this season. Because again, you're not just facing the Browns, you're facing a reflection of your own flaws. That's the storyline. That's the real challenge. What makes this even more compelling is how different the vibe in the locker room feels now compared to the start of the season. Ask around, and you'll get the same answer from almost everyone. Things started to shift between weeks 3 and 4. The belief started creeping back in, not just in the scheme, but in each other. Because early on, a lot of guys were playing like they didn't trust the man next to them. Maybe they didn't trust the call. Maybe they were second-guessing themselves. But it showed. You could see hesitation. You could feel it. And that hesitation is death in the NFL. That's why what happened in Dublin mattered so much. Because for the first time, you saw this group play with conviction. They weren't perfect, but they played fast and aggressive, and that made all the difference. The offensive line looked alive for the first time all season. The tight end got involved, while Darnell Washington did, at least, and Warren, even playing through injury, looked like a guy on the edge of a breakout. That's the identity this team needs to keep leaning into. That's the group that can claw its way into playoff relevance. Now, of course, not everything got fixed in one game. The tight ends outside of Washington have been borderline invisible. The passing game is still finding its rhythm. The red zone offense continues to frustrate. But the structure is there now. The effort is there. And if they keep showing that fight, they'll start stacking wins. Not in spite of their issues, but by confronting them head-on. And this Browns game, that's the perfect test of all of that. Because if you come out flat, they'll steamroll you. 1-4 or not, Cleveland's front seven doesn't play down to anyone. If you can't match their energy from the first snap, you're going to spend the day playing from behind. And once that happens, once you're forced into predictable passing situations, that's when Garrett and McGuire and the rest of those guys start feasting. That's when it all starts to unravel. But if the Steelers punch first, if they win at the line of scrimmage, if they control the pace, if they establish even a modest run game, then everything changes. Because now the defense can pin its ears back. Now you can make Gabriel beat you from the pocket. Now you can turn Judkins into a non-factor. It's all interconnected. That's why this matchup is so fascinating. It's not a typical 1-4 team coming to town. It's a 1-4 team with very specific tools that line up almost perfectly against what the Steelers still struggle with. And maybe that's a good thing. Maybe that's exactly what this team needs. A game that forces them to prove they're more than flashes and one-off wins. A game that pushes them to play grown man football for 4 quarters. Because that's what it's going to take. Not highlight plays. Not lucky bounces. Just grit, toughness, and total execution. But before we dive in, don't forget to subscribe to Steelers Nation Central and hit the like button on this video. Your support helps us keep bringing you the latest updates on the Pittsburgh Steelers. And don't forget to share your thoughts on the news in the comments below. Breaking the silence of the NFL offseason, whispers from inside the league suggest a seismic shift in Pittsburgh's offensive arsenal. Sources close to the matter hint that the Steelers may have pulled off a blockbuster acquisition, reportedly bringing wide receiver T. Higgins to Pittsburgh in what is being described as a massive agreement. If true, this move would instantly reshape the Steelers' passing game and ignite speculation about one of the most formidable wide receiver duos in recent memory. Higgins, known for his crisp route running and red zone efficiency, has been a standout in Cincinnati, steadily building his reputation as one of the league's most reliable targets. Pairing him with the Steelers' current star, George Pickens, could create a nightmare scenario for defenses across the AFC. Pickens' explosive speed and highlight reel catches already have defenses on high alert, but the addition of Higgins would demand double teams, strategic overhauls, and perhaps even a reevaluation of Pittsburgh's offensive identity. Rumor has it that the front office sees this as the missing puzzle piece to push the team into genuine Super Bowl contention. While no official confirmation has come from Heinz Field, insiders claim the deal is substantive and could be finalized in the coming days, leaving fans buzzing with anticipation. The potential chemistry between Pickens and Higgins is what's fueling much of the excitement. Analysts and former players have been quietly speculating that a dual-threat receiving core of this caliber could redefine the Steelers' aerial attack, combining size, speed, and versatility in ways that opponents struggle to counter. Of course, with every blockbuster rumor comes a healthy dose of skepticism. Contract terms, cap implications, and long-term fit all remain in question, but the buzz is impossible to ignore. Social media is already ablaze with mock plays, highlight montages, and debates over which defensive backs will be able to contain the feared Pickens-Higgins tandem. If the Steelers do secure Higgins, Pittsburgh could find itself at the center of NFL attention, not just for its historic franchise legacy, but for the promise of one of the league's deadliest offensive duos. That's it for this update. If you enjoyed the video and want to keep receiving exclusive news about the Pittsburgh Steelers, make sure to subscribe to Steelers Nation Central and give this video a like. We always look forward to hearing your comments and opinions. See you in the next video.